Now, on that property, the video you saw, there's only one road. There's only one way in and one way out, and the gate is always locked. So anybody comes into the property, they're going to know about it. Well, suddenly they see in the third homestead, the 3 homesteads in the property, they see these what look like headlights coming toward them. Or they think that maybe it's a Winnebago that somehow got stuck out on one of their pastures. Oh, gee, we'll go down and help the guy. They start walking toward it, and then the lights start coming in their direction, start moving toward them. And then the lights start moving up and over the trees and gone. Then they started seeing these flying refrigerators that generated these huge beams of light and made these loud noises like metal banging on metal. Tom and Ellen had a daylight sighting of a classic silver disc, a classic flying saucer, except this one seemed to generate an intense emotional response in them as they watched it. They were not afraid, they were elated, like almost giddy, way out of proportion for what was happening to them at the time. It kind of an induced emotional state, and they would come to see this many more times. There were others that looked like F-117 stealth fighters, but they had these multicolored, like flashing Christmas lights around the side. And they would hover over the property, not making a sound, and then just boom, disappear. And then the orbs came. At first, they were these little white lights flitting around in the darkness and in the trees and above the grass. And then they were followed by the red orbs that proved to be much more aggressive, since they often flew into the cattle and scatter these herds. They would just run away in abject fear. And then these larger orange orbs that generated this intense light. But these orange things that looked like they would hang in the sky, and they were like a sun. And then on occasion, Tom would watch them through binoculars or a telescope, and he would see things flying in and out of them. He even on one occasion reported that he could see another sky on the other side, as if this was some sort of a portal to somewhere else. Then came these blue ones, the blue meanies. Ruthless, manipulative, and as the family would learn, violent, confrontational, airborne menaces. These things they also seem to generate an emotional reaction, not only in people, but in animals. These things would fly among the horses, scare them just out of their mind. And then Tom and Ellen would try to come to the rescue. They'd get anywhere near these things. They looked like a size of a softball, glass encased, but with some kind of a bubbly, boiling-looking liquid inside. And they initiated this fear that just literally dropped them to their knees. Fear way out. Now, they'd already been through all kinds of stuff on this property, but these things did something to them that seemed to induce an emotional state. And in fact, we've theorized since that maybe it seemed to feed off of it. No, I guess it could be some advanced military project or something, but if we've got something that could do that, it'd be a mighty effective weapon system to have, and I just have never heard about us developing something like that. Another UFO that made occasional appearances with this black triangular craft, as I mentioned, like the F-117. There was one incident where, maybe this is too complicated to get into, but Tom is out of town on an out-of-town business trip. The wife is at home. She sees one of these things land. It follows her at the gate, and she's petrified. She runs into the house. She's by herself. She locks all the doors. A little bit later, she sees this big, bright light out on the pasture. She cracks open the window, and there's this UFO sitting on the pasture, sitting there, and a door is open, and it looks like there's a desk inside this thing. It's like an office. And I know this is weird, but these are pretty reliable people in our view. It's a desk, and this guy walks up to the desk. Looks like he's 9 feet tall, wearing like a black military uniform with a hood, and he sits down at the desk and stares in Ellen's direction. She closes the window, then opens it a little bit later. It sees her, gets up, walks outside, and walks out into the pasture, and now she's panicking. She closes the window, again checks the locks on the door. She calls her husband. He drives a couple of hours to come home. When he gets there in the morning, this thing is gone, but they found big, heavy boot prints out there where the thing had landed. Weird stuff. Some other incidents that don't easily fit into any category that we know. During the same period when all these assorted lights and craft are zipping around the ranch at night, Tom Gorman made an unusual discovery out in the third homestead. Someone had dug up these big chunks of the ground, taking big scoop marks, 8 or 9 different spots, probably 200 pounds of soil in each instance, and just scooped it up for whatever reason, like with a cookie cutter. And again, there's no way to get in there. You can't get a backhoe in that property without him knowing about it. Why they did it, what it was, he didn't know. At that point, he just about had enough. He was thinking it was the military messing with his brain, but he knew he'd had enough. He tried to talk to his neighbors. No one seemed to know what was going on, except for everyone knew that it had always been around there. Weird stuff like that. So he agreed to talk to a local newspaper reporter who wrote a story, and the story was picked up by the AP, and they took a photo of Tom standing there with these scoop marks. That photo went all over the country under his real name, and it's how Bob Bigelow from Las Vegas, who created NIDS, found out about what was going on out there, and eventually led to him coming to that property. But I'll get back to that. The other incident is far more unsettling. As the weirdness at the ranch mounted, the word filtered out about the property and weird stuff was going on. And one day this guy shows up, big mountain man, Grizzly Adams looking guy with long hair, told Tom at the front gate that he'd been drawn there for some reason. He'd been drawn there, he'd driven hundreds of miles, he had to meditate on the property. Tom and his son are kind of looking at the guy and thinking, this is pretty goofy, this is pretty funny. The guy, they figured, what the heck, they're going to let him in. You got to get in their car, they'll drive you, you tell us where you want to meditate. So the guy cruises into what is the middle homestead, which is where a lot of weird stuff. He goes, that's the spot, let me out here. So the dad and the son are leaning on the truck watching this guy. He goes out, he opens his palms, he's looking at the sky and chanting and whatever meditation is involved with. And they're watching, they're kind of giggling at him. And then they hear this sound. It's like a cowbell sound. And they hear it faint out in the bushes. And then they're looking. He's oblivious to it, but they're looking and they see something moving in the brush line. It's kind of opaque, like you've seen that Predator movie where it's kind of camouflaged. It's moving in there. It has no distinct shape, moving around, and then comes out of the bushes up to this guy, 1 foot away from him, 8, 9 feet tall, whatever the heck the thing was, and roars like a lion kind of roar. You can hear it for miles. This guy jumps out of his skin. He jumps straight back, falls on the ground, and then this thing, poof, it's gone. Well, he's standing there. He's laying there shaking. He's not getting up. So Tom comes over to help him up, and he's just petrified. He helps him up, and he won't let go of the rancher. He practically carries him back to the truck, and he's absolutely terrified. He swears it's the devil or something like that. They drive him off the property, and he leaves with some epithet to the effect of that this is the devil living there. Well, as an aside, I don't know what the heck that thing was, but as an aside, during my first visit to the property, that second homestead, that middle homestead, is where a lot of weird stuff happened. Cattle mutilations, animals incinerated. So they decided that maybe if I had a certain inherent weirdness quotient, that they'd do a little experiment. So they put me on a plastic white chair in the middle of the night and left me there. And then they went a couple of hundred yards away, and I think they were probably drinking beer or coffee or something like that, and had cameras to set up, not to help me or anything, but to see if something came and got me. I would like to tell you that I'm brave and no thoughts of predators coming to grab me ever even popped into my head, but it was spooky. It's always been spooky out there. The only thing that did come and get me though that night were mosquitoes. So after about 45 minutes, I'd have quite enough as being bait out in that homestead. As mentioned, the ranch sort of became like a shopping list, a paranormal shopping list, and it gets to the point that mentioning all of it just sounds ridiculous.
She saw this standing on 2 legs, a wolf creature, a wolf standing in her yard, its paws crossed like this, leaning on a tree, staring back at her.
I'm Dr. Travis Taylor. I'm a subject matter expert in space defense, asymmetric warfare, rocket science, and alien invasions. I've really studied this phenomenon my whole life, and I've made a pretty good detailed investigation into what might happen where we have first contact with extraterrestrials. Now, this message is a welcome and a warning for any UFOs or aliens out there that might receive this signal and decide to act upon it. First, the signal was sent against my advisement. Second, if you do show up, you got to keep this in mind. Humanity is mostly a peace-loving, fun-loving species, but we have a very good propensity to make warfare, and if anybody shows up and tries to impose things on us, cultural or alien concepts that are something against what we're all about, we will make darn sure to activate our warfare making machine. So keep that in mind and come visit us. We'll have a good time. We'll learn from each other. We'll see y'all soon.
They come down this dirt road one night and they see two figures, humanoid-looking figures, standing up with their backs to the road and looked like they were smoking cigarettes. They had trench coats on, smoking cigarettes, standing out on the road. These guys figure, what are these fellas up to? So they're pulling up and they shining their lights on the guys, and they turn around and they were dogs.
But no evidence of any kind to back up any of these stories has ever been presented. George Knapp, who's built an entire career around stories of UFOs and the paranormal, and who was one of the authors of the Hunt for the Skinwalker book, was asked about evidence on the Joe Rogan show.
Because they weren't there with cameras.
Is there any evidence?
Like for the first 20 months when the rancher is there, they don't have any evidence because he's not a paranormal investigator.
At this point, Knapp begins telling more stories about UFOs on and near the ranch. Rogan then interrupts and asks again.
Again, is there any evidence?
No, not really.
Oh.
If you're looking for physical evidence and solid proof, and they don't have it.
Oh. Knapp saying there's no proof or evidence is quite strange, considering the book Knapp co-authored says this: "We obtained an intriguing body of physical evidence to support many of the accounts described in the book." Okay, so where is that intriguing body of physical evidence?
I can feel it, can you feel it? 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 I can feel it, can you feel it?
Greetings and salutations, friends. I think I can feel it. Yes. Welcome. We are here once again to discuss and explore. They call it the Hunt for Skinwalker Ranch, right? I know the Hunt for the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. I call it the Hunt for the Skinwalker Cache. We started tonight's broadcast with a wonderful selection of stupid stories from one George Knapp. I thought it important that we make sure that we recognize and understand that the current crop of people trying to cash in on Skinwalker Ranch is just the latest in a long line of people who have cashed in looking for the Skinwalker cache. Chief among them, of course, was George Knapp, and also his friend, Jeremy Corbell. Between the two of them, they produced a very popular book and a very popular documentary, all of which offered about zero evidence. Despite their claims of having evidence, they never actually show any evidence, but we do get some great stories about dogmen, smoking dogs, predators, and more. And this, of course, is a problem for me. Now, since the beginning of this television show, I have long sat, quite honestly, in awe of these people, the current crop of people, including Travis Taylor, most notably, PhD, and Brandon Fugel, billionaire real estate investor, who swear that they're doing everything with science, but the science that they use is not like conventional science. They don't have controls. It's very, to be honest with you, it's not science. It's slop. They can call it science if they want, and they can, put a PhD on camera to try to explain the science to us. However, this is not science. This is garbage designed to sell stupid people spooky stories about a ranch and paranormal activity. But they never do quite seem to get to the actual evidence. And when pressed for evidence, especially most recently, when one Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post visited the ranch. By the way, while Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post was visiting the ranch, Travis Taylor, he's a pussy. He was off having a hissy fit for, he was angry that how dare you let a skeptic like Stephen Greenstreet onto the property. So he went and had a pussy hissy fit. He refused to be there while Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post was there. But while there, Stephen Greenstreet asked to see their best evidence, and he got shown a video of what could have been a moth or a lightning bug, and another video which could have been a silkworm or some other form of insect reflecting off of sunlight in an abandoned building. It just strikes me as funny. These people have invested, according to them, millions of dollars into the scientific study of this paranormal hotspot. We're told that this paranormal hotspot is just chock full of absolute paranormal activity all the time. Yet when asked to see the proof of it, we get grainy videos of bugs, essentially. I would think if there's truly paranormal activity there, you would have a little more evidence to share. But this is where we're at, and this is where we find ourselves. Now, recently, Travis Taylor, when he got done crying and having a pussy hissy fit about a skeptic visiting the ranch, and by the way, if you have real evidence of something, you don't care if a skeptic is there. You don't cry and complain and sulk off, because they let a skeptic onto the property. I think, at least to me, and this is my opinion and I'm entitled to it, it's very, very clear that Travis Taylor is there for the money. He wants the money and the fame of this thing. And he doesn't want a skeptic coming in and shitting all over his fake science. And by the way, I don't have a PhD, but I know what the scientific method is, and they don't follow any sort of scientific method. They never have controls. It is really sloppy garbage that they present for a television audience that is largely stupid and just looking to be entertained by spooky stories. And that, more than anything, is what I think Skinwalker is. It's people trading spooky stories around a campfire. Bob Bigelow invested millions of dollars into so-called research at the ranch. And by the way, not only did Bob Bigelow invest his own money, millions of dollars, but he also managed to scam the government into giving him $22 million of our taxpayer money to investigate a ranch that he himself owned. And what did we get from that? Lots of reports of strange, spooky stories. That's what we got for $22 million. We didn't get any actual, evidence. And Stephen Greenstreet has detailed that people working in the employ of Bob Bigelow while he was studying the ranch used to sit around and drink vodka and get drunk and fax him paranormal stories. There was even sort of a bonus system in place where if you reported paranormal activity to Bob Bigelow, you got some extra money. This is not the way to conduct a scientifically valid, at least, investigation into anything. This is clown shoes, and that's what we get. So after Bob Bigelow gave up, citing lack of activity at the ranch, he sold it to one Brandon Fugel, who, among other things, and I'm going to try to be as kind as possible, but Brandon Fugel is a Mormon Christian, and among other things, Mormon Christians believe that they have magic underwear. So, I'm sorry if I'm not very impressed when somebody who believes in magic underwear tells me about ghosts and goblins and things like that. And of course, while Bigelow was still in charge, we got a lot of ridiculous stories of werewolves and dino beavers. There's just been a recent story where somebody claimed that the dino beavers that people were seeing were actually just very large porcupines, common in the area where the ranch is located. So Brandon Fugel takes over. And, in all fairness to Mr. Fugel, I think that he is the victim of profiteering whores. That's what I think. I think that Brandon Fugel has a lot of people around him who he's paying and who he's getting lucrative business deals for in the form of live conferences, in the form of, paying them directly for their scientific investigation. I think that Brandon Fugel himself is getting fooled by a group of profiteering whores who like big paychecks for hanging out at a ranch and playing Ghostbusters, which is essentially what these guys have been doing for the past several years now, hanging out at a ranch and playing Ghostbusters. So I don't want to be too harsh to Mr. Fugel, but I would caution Mr. Fugel. You have, in the form of Travis Taylor, somebody who's apparently very, very scientifically educated. Then why is he doing things that a high school science project person would not do, such as the lack of control, the lack of scientific method in the course of these so-called investigations? It is like an amateur hour clown show out there, and you, Mr. Fugel, are paying for all of this. Why would you not have a scientist that actually follows scientific method, has things like control groups set up so that you're not just spouting nonsense? Now, along with some of this wonderful information we've already shared with you about what a crock of shit this place is, Mick West is now also asking them for data, which so far, to the best of my knowledge and recollection, they will not give any data to Mick West. They prefer, I suppose, that the true believers who are getting paychecks and getting rich off of Skinwalker Ranch continue to be the only people who have access to the data. I think that this speaks volumes about the validity of the claims of people like Brandon Fugel or Travis Taylor or others, who are all, by the way, profiting an incredible amount. Now, along with the lack of shared data, there also is the issue of the profiteering whoreism of this entire thing. Like, you can pay money and get behind a paywall and get some extra bits of Skinwalker spookiness. And we detailed previously who is the person on that website who is promoting and advertising that you should get behind the paywall. Well, none other than Christina Gomer, who works with Jimmy Church, the biggest fraud promoter in the history of the paranormal. I thought that was suspect, and I simply pointed out to Mr. Fugel that on his website telling people to get behind the paywall is somebody who is associated with the biggest frauds, fakes, charlatans, and quite honestly, scammers in the field of the paranormal in the form of Christina Gomer. And what did I get for simply pointing that out? And by the way, that's a fair estimate of the situation, Mr. Fugel. You have a girl on your website who works with someone who has promoted more paranormal scammers, frauds, hoaxers than anyone. You want to be Mr. Science, right? If you want to play Ghostbusters, don't have somebody associated with proven fraud, hoaxer, scammers of the paranormal world featured heavily on your website, telling people to get behind your paywall. It's not a good look for you. Also, not a good look for you, apparently, Mr. Fugel, is that you, sir, are such an intellectual coward and weakling that you couldn't even take. And by the way, I was very kind about it. I wasn't nasty. I just said, do you think it's a good idea to have this girl promoting your paywall who's associated with Jimmy Church, the biggest fraud promoter in the world of the paranormal, who has been caught countless times platforming 100% proven frauds, you know, like the fake Dr. Jonathan Reed, you know, like the fake psychic healer Sarah R. Adams, you know, like the fake secret space program guy Corey Good, or David Wilcock, who literally promoted GoFundMe and PayPal scams on his show. He's partnered with Christina Gomer, and you're using Christina Gomer on your website to promote Get Behind My Paywall, because nothing says this is a good idea like having somebody associated with all the biggest scammers in the world of the paranormal helping advertise Get Behind Your Paywall, Mr. Fugel. And all I did was point that out. And by the way, those are all factual statements. Christina Gomer is partners with Jimmy Church, who promotes UFO scammers, New Age scammers, fake psychic healers, and more. And what did I get for that? I got blocked by Brandon Fugel, who apparently is living in a delusional world bubble, and he doesn't like people that have facts. So tonight, Mr. Fugel, I'm going to bring some more facts, and we're going to show people tonight how your so-called PhD level scientist, your head of science and investigation, while you're playing Ghostbusters, you asshole, is a joke. He's not using science. He's using science to fool detectors so that you have some kind of material to sell people. And by the way, Mr. Christian, you know, I don't think it's very Christian of you to allow someone to fudge the data to fake paranormal activity so that you can make money off of this ranch. Is this what Jesus would do, Mr. Fugel? But, you know, I'm not looking for a response from Mr. Fugel. He's made up his mind. And in his mind, he can't have somebody point out things like facts, right? Somebody that has things like inconvenient facts that sheds light on the Skinwalker scam, he doesn't like that. So he has to block me, and that's fine. Go live in your delusional bubble with your magic underwear and your hillbilly asshole of a scientist in the form of Travis Taylor, and go try to pull the wool over stupid people's eyes. But luckily, people are waking up, and people like Mick West are calling out some of the obvious scientific problems with some of the claims being made. And that's where we start our journey tonight. We start our journey with Travis Taylor making absolutely ludicrous claims about radiation at this so-called Skinwalker Ranch. And Mick West pointed out some obvious problems with the claims that are being made by Travis Taylor about radiation levels at the Skinwalker Ranch. So we're going to cite fair use. This is a transformative work, and we are educating the public about the Skinwalker scam. I mean, the Skinwalker cache. I mean, the Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, it's a ranch. All right, and Mick West says it's amazing that a TV production company would be able to get insurance, allowing them to film in a location with dangerous and unpredictable levels of radiation. So there's some of the claims being made by Travis Taylor that there's dangerous levels of radiation all around the ranch.
Where Skinwalker Ranch is, it is to the east, or what would be downrange of the nuclear test.
And by the way, nothing says scientifically valid, nothing says scientifically credible like being a guest on the Rick and Bubba show.
Yeah,
facility in Nevada.
It's a long way though from the Nevada test site, you know, and that was one of the first things we looked at.
Right.
We checked for residual radiation and things like that, and there's nothing there.
But we blew up 1,000 atomic bombs there. I mean, that's a lot. If you told the average guy on the street, could the U.S. survive 1,000 atomic bombs? They say, well, no. And I said, well, we've already blown that many up on ourselves out there at the test range.
Well, they were small tactical nukes too, though. We didn't blow up like the Russian Tsar Bomba or anything like that. But yeah.
But is it possible that some of that could be radiation that has drifted in?
No, because we know what those decay products are, and we've looked for them, and you can see them in the residual background. And we know what they are, and they're way below safe norms. And what we're seeing, what we're measuring,
here's the buddy shot,
are spikes in the gamma rays. And I'll tell you this: that we took a calibrated NIST traceable instrument out there that would measure the spectrum of the gamma rays.
Mm-hmm.
And they were at 511 kilo electron volts. Let me explain what that means. That's the frequency of gamma rays or X-rays that happens when you have antimatter and matter collide. When you have an electron and a positron collide, they blow up and they create these gamma rays. That doesn't happen anywhere except atom smashers, big particle colliders, and in science fiction.
That is incorrect. Absolutely 100% scientifically incorrect. Brandon Fugel, I think you need to fire. This guy is a clown. He's not a scientist, and he is spreading absolutely 100% verifiably false information. And he's your head of science. He doesn't know about gamma radiation background levels. That can be affected by a multitude of different things. So he literally is just giving 100% incorrect information here.
Oh, that's what run the warp core.
Right.
Not to go to Star Trek on you there, Rick, but
I'm fine. I'm fine.
Well, so many times, our science fiction ends up being true later on because, people had a vision or thought something might work and it ends up working. So what do you attribute that to?
Well, I don't know. And the fact
that's the question.
The fact that it happens at such high levels and in very localized spots, that's not a technology that we have. And so
again, that's not a technology that we have. This is another scientifically false statement that he is making about radiation or gamma levels in that area.
It's not something naturally occurring, and it's
again, he has no evidence or proof that this is not something naturally occurring in the atmosphere, in the environment, in and around that area.
Not from any technology I've ever heard of. So it's something unique, either to that location or to whatever that phenomena.
Where did he get readings of surrounding properties? He didn't. He's making assumptions, which, you know what happens when you assume. You make an ass out of me and you.
Be harmful to you.
Oh, yes. In fact, we've had several times where we've had to evacuate an area because the radiation level got too high.
So he's saying that the radiation levels in various times surrounding the ranch get so high that you have to evacuate. And Mick West correctly points out, if what he is stating here is actually factual, no television company would film in an area with dangerously high levels of radiation here. So, occasionally one of these people says something so ridiculous and stupid and scientifically not valid that it proves that they are, let's just say, on the take. Travis Taylor has a profit-driven motive to constantly be coming up with new phenomenon that is strange, unusual, or paranormal. And he has a profit-driven motive to continue to find strange and unusual activity and then try to use his scientific background to make these claims seem very valid. But Mick West correctly points out, if there were incredibly dangerous levels of radiation being routinely detected at this ranch, no television company, just from an insurance perspective, would be filming there, because anybody who was being filmed, anybody who was a member of the cast or crew, could become ill, could become sick, could get cancer from these dangerously high levels of radiation. And they could then sue the production company for allowing them to be there, for not intervening. So this is just the latest in a long line of Travis Taylor putting his foot in his mouth, saying absolutely ridiculous things that, you know, there's only two possibilities here. Either his readings are wrong or this shit never happened. And Mick West, I suppose, is going to be following up on that aspect of it, because anybody can check and get radiation background levels with the Atomic Energy Commission. Of course, Travis Taylor has some kind of explanation. These are strange events that are localized, or, you know, only happening in certain areas of the ranch at certain times. Okay, where's the data? Can you share the data? Can we see the data? And where is your control readings? Right? We never get the data. Even, by the way, I'm going to get behind their paywall, recommended by Christina Gomer, partner to Jimmy Church, the biggest paranormal fraud promoter in the history of paranormal anything. And we'll see if there's any data there. But I've been told by people that all you get there is some extra bonus video nonsense and, you know, maybe some charts and graphs, but not much data. So back to the fact that this man, though he, listen, I can't argue with that man Travis Taylor's education. However, I can argue just this simple point, that he is financially motivated to continue to find strange and unusual activity to sell the myth of the Skinwalker Ranch, so that he keeps getting big fat television checks. And there has been some recent controversy lately that members of the cast and crew of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch are taking payoffs from the local municipality somehow. They're getting some kind of money for so-called economic development. And I know that several people have looked into that situation and even interviewed people. I don't understand how they can ethically or morally take money from the local community. What are they doing to economically develop that area, other than you know, making tons of cash on a television show? So we are going to explore the scientific validity of some of Travis Taylor's previous claims on the show. And we still have our fair use banner up, but I do have to acknowledge that every time we play a clip from the television show, we get a copyright claim or strike. And I just want to mention that this is a transformative work. How can I critique the television show that we're talking about without including some of the clips of the claims that are being made? And I would just say to Mr. Fugel, you know, you really should have some sort of policy for that. Are you such an intellectual weakling and a coward? Are your so-called scientific experts such pussies that the claims that they make cannot withstand scrutiny or debate? Why then, every single time I could play a 3-second clip and I will get a copyright claim? I have to fill out all kinds of paperwork. That's not right. That's not fair, Mr. Fugel. Maybe, just maybe, your so-called chief scientist should not be making absolutely positively ludicrous scientific claims that are easily proven to be garbage science. If you don't want people scrutinizing him, don't allow him to make garbage science claims. He's supposed to be a PhD. Now, I have long been critical of the lack of scientific method being used, and the fact that I truly believe, it's my opinion and I'm entitled to it, that Travis Taylor's entire job at the ranch is to use his scientific background to find strange things that they can push as paranormal when there is ordinary earthly explanations for some of the things that he does. I was happy to find that many people on YouTube are going over these clips, and they are showing that Travis Taylor is a joke when it comes to being a scientist. He is a joke, a clown, and he does things that no real scientist would do. And we're going to begin with some of Travis Taylor's claims of strange EMF. For those unaware, that's electromagnetic radiation, which is in every environment, but we're going to begin with that. But before we do that, we want to thank and recognize Victor Wag for a kind and generous $13.99 Canadian, who says, not sure, it's just profit driven. Fugel's crew are 100% Mormon and trying to prove Joseph Smith's many worlds prophecy. Religious hucksterism. Right. And Ryan Evans is here complaining. Well, sure, we've put out positive videos. And if you want fairy tales, then go somewhere else, Mr. Evans. Go listen to Christina Gomer. Go watch The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, where they lie to you. We don't do that here. And if you don't like it, then see ya. Why do you come here to complain then? Speaking of being negative, is it negative to point out that people are deceiving people for cash? Is it negative to point out that so-called PhD level scientists are doing things that a high school science project would get disqualified from a science fair for? If so, then I'm guilty as charged. But we want to thank you, Victor Wag, for your kindness, your generosity, and your support. And I saw another one there somewhere. Let me catch up. We want to thank Patrick Sheehan for the kind and generous $9.99 super sticker. Thank you for your kindness. You know, maybe you should go through our catalog, Ryan. Maybe you should go through our catalog before you continue to complain so much. We did it. We did an 8-hour series on Roswell, for example. That wasn't negative. We talked to every expert on the every expert author and researcher known to be a good expert author or researcher on Roswell. Was that negative? You know, if you don't like it, then find something else of mine to watch. And if you don't like anything that I watch, then I invite you, go listen to Linda Moulton Howe fairy tales or something. Maybe you're just not ready to hear the truth. And that is that 99% of the people selling you these stories are UFO profiteering whores that are deceiving you in order to make money. Maybe you're just not ready to hear about that. Otherwise, we've produced many, many different shows on many, many different topics. So I don't understand, but we want to thank you guys for your kindness, your generosity, and support, and helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right, so we're gonna get into someone who did quite an interesting debunk on YouTube about some of the lack of actual science that is being portrayed as real science here, right? 1 second. All right, so this video is titled "The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch Debunked," featuring Pumpkin Fox. Great. And we begin with some of the claims of EMF findings. And these are pretty old claims, but I remember seeing some of this and thinking, how is this science? Right?
Blatant disregard for the absolute basics of the proper use of instruments.
13, 14, we're at 15, 16.
Is it still doing it?
Is it 5? It's 18. It just jumped to 18 just then. Jim, are you seeing anything on the spectrum analyzer?
Actually, I am.
You are.
What are you seeing?
Something down in the lower areas.
So I'm getting some pretty high spikes. Some of the stuff like you saw yesterday.
See that?
What does this mean?
We don't know what it is, but we're seeing it with multiple instruments.
So this is something.
Something could be happening right now.
What does this mean?
We don't know what it is.
What does this mean?
We don't know what it
What are you
is.
seeing?
Something down in the lower areas.
What are you seeing?
Something down in the lower areas.
What are you seeing?
Something down in the lower areas.
What are you seeing?
Something down in the lower areas.
Yeah, so all of these people who are standing around using these instruments all have their cell phones with them. And they are seeing, gee, could it be cell phone radiation?
What are you
Going
seeing?
crazy. Jumping high and it jumps back to zero.
Something down in the
Ooh,
lower
that's kind of small.
areas.
Yikes.
Out of the ordinary. We need to get out of
Yeah,
here.
and by the way, none of these readings are out of the ordinary when you've got 5 guys standing around with cell phones while you're using these other measuring equipment.
Is there really a safe place on this ranch? We're quickly losing places that are safe to go on this ranch.
He held an EMF emitting phone right next to an EMF detector and wonders why he's getting readings that are perfectly in line with a phone's, output. This is the kind of stuff that makes this so-called Skinwalker scientist a laughable joke. This is not something that a real scientist would do. A real scientist would eliminate all possibilities for the emission of this radiation. They never have a control, says Wreaking Havoc 215. Exactly. And a lack of control is not science. It's all speculation. What they do is all speculation here.
You serious?
All right, it's time that we talk about their abhorrent use of and their blatant lack of regard for the scientific method.
Firstly, one of the main points in the show is a strange amount of high EMF signals on the property. When they are measuring EMF signals, they don't even have a control test. They don't even care to eliminate possible variables in their tests, as well as the cellular coverage in the area, which is something that the show goes out of their way to talk about how that can't be the cause, completely disregarding all the recording equipment from the equation.
And, just to drive home that point, the first thing that they should have done is turned off all of their own cell phones, or even just not been there with the cell phone at all. Would have been the best and proper and scientific way to do any sort of measuring of EMF. They did not do that. And there's a reason they didn't do that. They need strange anomalies in order to sell the television show.
We'll stop right here. This is probably the easiest place to access the top of the ridge. Climb the rest of the way.
The Fox man,
So-
yeah, he'll smoke too.
It's coming
Yes.
from that direction. What is doing that?
Look at that.
In fact, I can't imagine performing this test any more inadequately, as in science you try to eliminate as many variables as you can, so that you can be sure that your tests haven't been smudged. But here they haven't just smudged the tests.
They have poured pudding everywhere.
You're right.
and
There's
then
no,
yeah,
there's
man,
no
this is crazy.
reproducibility
Man,
or
I'm
reliability.
so scared right now. They're all mic'd up with wireless lavalier mics, as well as the fact they all have drones flying around, and they all have cell phones, all emitting signals. To give a better analogy, it's like if scientists were to go around lighting buildings on fire to see how fire-resistant buildings are, and then being shocked that for some reason there are a bunch of houses on fire. They're actually, unironically, just reading their own equipment.
Look at that.
Some science.
Sounds like it might be getting louder as we get higher. Let's go up the mountain and see what happens. Skinwalker Ranch is in the middle of nowhere, and I couldn't see a cell phone tower as far as I could see. I barely was getting a signal on my phone.
Right, so if you're barely getting a signal, then that means that there apparently is a cell tower somewhere. In fact, this statement about him not being able to see any cell towers is a really strange way to dismiss a possible variable that could potentially explain everything. This whole show is really predicated on the idea that this is some super remote location with no towers. But you can see how they use clever wording to keep the audience blind.
Yeah, and by the way,
Technically,
there's
nearly
towers all
everywhere has
over
no
that
towers
area.
near it. However, everywhere has a distance to the nearest tower. So why couldn't you just say how far away the closest one is? I think it's apparently obvious that if they did that, then all the EMF signals would make sense. And they couldn't keep pretending that there's no way cell towers aren't doing this when you really know how laughably close the nearest one is. Check this out. My friend Spectre helped me find a bunch. The nearest microwave tower is only 39 miles away, and that's within completely usable distance. Not only is this one quite close, but the whole ranch is in the middle of a triangle of microwave towers.
Yeah, so we've got microwave towers, we've got a cell phone tower 39 miles away. They never eliminate or even acknowledge that the readings that they are getting could be entirely naturally occurring due to some of the technology right in the area that they are taking these readings in.
However, that's only microwave towers. To find the cell towers, we have to take a closer look, because the cell towers are somehow even more laughably close. There are 3 cell towers, all under 5 miles away, with the closest being only 3 miles away. It's starting to seem like we have cracked.
I'm sorry, but if you have a cell phone tower 3 miles away, you cannot discount that as a possibility for why you're getting these EMF readings. This is the layers of deception that this cast and crew are willing to use. They use these layers of, it couldn't be a cell phone. I couldn't see one. There's one 4 miles away, Travis Taylor. Shouldn't you tell the audience that there's a cell phone tower 4 miles away from nearly the exact location where you're taking these so-called anomalous readings? These readings are not anomalous. They are perfectly in line with atmospheric norms of anyone within a 4-mile radius of a cell phone tower.
The case. However, if you start doing the math with how radio signals will dissipate in power density following the inverse square law, it seems like this still isn't a good explanation for the EMF there. As Mike West pointed out, the canoe is a 5 kilowatt non-directional tower, and since it's 4 miles away, we use a 4-mile radius sphere, which, following the sphere area formula, has a surface area of 520,687,000 meters. Then, following the inverse square law, we divide our signal strength.
By the way, this is the real science that Travis Taylor should have presented, but he just said, I can't see no cell phone tower, and I barely get a signal, so can't be that.
S by our surface area, 4 pi r squared, to find how strong our signal would be, and it's 0.00009600269 watts a meter squared. Then, using the metric table, we convert it to milliwatts by moving the decimal 3 places to the right. So the signal strength we should be reading is 0.009 milliwatts a meter squared, which is about 1,000 times lower than the 10 milliwatts a meter squared the show is getting. Well, it seems like it must have been aliens then, or the dead Indians.
Yes, it definitely must be aliens.
No, just kidding. It's still their own equipment. We can use the same equation backwards to find how strong their wireless mics are.
So they're taking readings and they're getting their own equipment. Remember, these guys are all wired up with wireless microphones. They've all got cell phones, and there's a drone flying in the area that is radio controlled. Great.
Are. And if it turns out their wireless lav mics are within a range of 1 to 250 milliwatts, which is the range that wireless microphone transmitters operate at, then it means that it could be their equipment that they're reading. So we know that their transmitters are in their back pockets, with his tri-field meter in his hands in front of him while he is measuring. At most, the instrument will be a meter away from his back pocket. So we can plug it in and find the surface area of a sphere with a radius of 1 meter is 12.566 meters. Then we multiply that by the 10 milliwatts a meter squared to find our output signal for the wireless lav mic is around 125.66 milliwatts, which falls right into the range that wireless mic transmitters can operate at. Although this isn't proof that their wireless mics are causing the EMF, the preponderance of plausible explanations I've laid out is certainly enough to dismiss the notion that this is out of the ordinary.
Out of the ordinary.
Yeah, this guy is literally measuring his own wireless. It could be. It's very likely that he is measuring his own wireless microphone and claiming that it is something paranormal. This is the problem that I have with the Skinwalker cash gang.
And there were no Wi-Fi routers.
Whew, man, that was a nice walk.
Hey, hand me that meter. What you're saying, Eric?
So we're at 4.5.
Which way?
Now remember, there's 5 guys out here. All of them are getting paychecks. This is very important. They're all getting paychecks. They all like those paychecks. They want to keep those paychecks going. So let's just forget that we've all got wireless microphone transmitters in our pockets while we take these readings.
This way. Yeah, this was pegging out. Around, it's kind of along the ridge line. Yeah, I mean, it's a real strong signal.
What's it saying?
Dude, it's in the milliwatts per meter squared. I mean, that's a significant amount of energy right there. We went to the top of the mesa. What we found was even more. The electromagnetic radiation that shouldn't be there. It's a real strong signal. Let's go up the mountain and see what happens. We went to the top of the mesa. What we found was even more. The electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah, and obviously at the top of the mountain, there would be less atmospheric interference. There'd be less material to absorb some of that EMF.
It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be there. We went to the top.
I'm a scientist.
What we found was even more. The electromagnetic radiation that shouldn't be there. It's a real strong signal. And at dangerous levels that could be harmful to humans. And at dangerous levels that could be harmful to humans.
Does this mean I'm safe?
And it's shifted now. Now it's coming from that direction.
Okay, so now we know that they're operating in the radio frequency range, and now we know what the power density is in the area. So power density is defined as power flow per unit area. We'll get back to this. To understand why a power density of 10 milliwatts per meter squared for any frequency between 20 megahertz to 6 gigahertz isn't dangerous, we first have to understand how they...
Yeah, so even the claims of this can be dangerous to humans is 100% false. Hey, Brandon Fugel, this is your lead scientist. He doesn't even know. He's making absolutely 100% false statements like this is dangerous levels to humans. No, it's
the electromagnetic spectrum works. And we'll also have to explain how frequencies affect matter, and how the amplitude affects how strong the frequency is, and how the different amplitudes of said frequencies affect how the frequencies affect matter. So first, this is the EMF spectrum. A stream of massless particles called photons, each traveling in a wave-like pattern at the speed of light. Essentially, the wavelength will tell you its energy. A radio wave has a really long wavelength, so it has low energy, whereas gamma rays have a really small wavelength, and thus really high energy. And since all waves travel at the same speed, the speed of light, you can multiply the wavelength by the frequency and it will always equal C. Or to find the frequency of a particular wavelength, divide C by the wavelength in meters to find the frequency.
By the way, this is the science that Travis should be showing.
Hence why the speed of light is called the speed of light. It's a constant for everything on the spectrum. Anyway, we're only talking about frequencies here. How many times an oscillation, aka wave cycle, passes a given point per second? Everything to the left, like radio frequencies or microwaves, are non-ionizing radiation. They simply don't have enough energy to break chemical bonds the way ionizing radiation can, like damaging your genes and giving you cancer. So everything to the left is safe. The only thing some of these lower energy frequencies can do is cause polar molecules like water to flip axis to try and match the wave, and thus molecular friction from this creates heat. The more amplitude for some of these lower frequencies, the more it inclines the water molecules to want to flip. This is the process of how microwave ovens heat up your food. However, microwave ovens operate at a kilowatt onto a 30 by 40 centimeter area, meaning that their power density is 8,330 watts a meter squared. Now their power density was only 10 milliwatts a meter squared, which is 0.01 watts a meter squared. The amount of heating you would get from this is so low to be basically negligible. To better demonstrate how not scary their readings are, the sun heats up Earth's surface with a power density of approximately 1,000.
Isn't it interesting that Travis Taylor is so willing to make absolutist statements like this is dangerous for humans without explaining why? He's a PhD level scientist. Meanwhile, just a random science nerd on YouTube can actually explain why he's completely and totally 100% wrong here.
1,000 watts a meter squared. Now obviously it has some higher ionizing frequencies which makes it actually scary. However, the warmth of the sun you feel on your skin is what I want to contrast to show you how warm the radio waves are. And since the surface area of the average over 20-year-old human is about 2 meters squared, and since only half your body can be exposed at any one time to the sun, you'd basically be receiving the full 1,000 watts a meter squared of heating from the sun. So if you're scared of being warmed up by the 0.01 watts a meter squared, the amount of heat you would get from the sun is literally 100,000 times the heat you would get from the radio frequencies there. There is absolutely nothing to worry about over there. This is is all using fancy equipment that the general public has no idea about and showing scary sounding numbers from people with credentials to make you trust their judgment so that they can continue to sell their snake oil to you. In fact, what's that? Hang on. No, I've got breaking news coming in here. Apparently we have live footage of Travis Killer finding out that the sun is 100,000 times scarier than aliens. And this whole time he hasn't been wearing sunscreen.
Live video of Travis learning sunlight is 100,000 times more spooky. Uh-oh. Oh no!
Travis, there's been a flying orb in the sky above you this whole time. It's right above you right now.
So literally the sun is more dangerous than these radiation, these EMF levels that Travis Taylor is saying this is, dangerous to humans. This is absolutely 100% false statements being made by the so-called head of science of the Skinwalker Cash Gang, right? And this, more than anything, is, proof that these guys are not there to get scientific answers. They're there to show you spooky things and strange and anomalous readings so that they could keep getting paychecks.
And it's all radiation.
Yeah, it's all area.
Wow.
The level of microwaves there that we detected were much stronger than what you get from your cell phone or your Wi-Fi routers. And microwaves like that.
Yeah, and he just leaves out his wireless mic transmitters. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys there, plus cameramen, all of which the 5 guys all have wireless microphone transmitters on them. So this is another huge nothing burger that has been hyped up by the so-called PhD level scientist at Skinwalker Ranch to sell snake oil.
That just don't exist in nature. So where was this microwave radiation coming from?
Because I'd never seen that. I don't know. We've been here, what, an hour, and already found something that I don't have any idea what's going on. I don't understand it.
So there's 2 possibilities here. Either this man is completely and totally stupid and incompetent as a scientific person, a scientist, or he isn't this stupid and he is intentionally deceiving the audience in order to keep getting a paycheck.
Warning, unprotected and unsupervised watching of this video may result in frustration, pulling of the hair, desired punching marks, punching them up, permanent loss of IQ, irritation, self-mutilation, self-immolation.
It's much worse.
Remember, you watch it,
Yes.
you can't unwatch it. You have been warned.
You guys should take a look at this happening with Caleb's phone.
Here is another huge nothing burger that Travis Taylor is going to hype up as something anomalous or paranormal.
So what all is it doing?
Doing what it's done in the past. It goes into different apps. It's taken a couple screenshots. I don't have any control over it. It's shut itself off. It's turned it back on, and it just goes right past my passcode.
It's just instantly hacking that.
Yeah, and here is another problem that I have. These guys with their busted up cell phones claiming that the strange anomalies with their cell phones are somehow paranormal. Maybe it's just broken. We can see it's all smashed up here.
That's almost technologically impossible to do, and it's doing it instantaneously.
Yes.
And Caleb's phone is really wigging out. It's like somebody has opened up his phone, unlocked the passcode, and is going through all of his apps, trying to dial random contacts. Currently, even the National Security Agency doesn't even have the technology to hack that kind of encryption. That is
Another false
startling
statement.
to me.
And it tried calling 911 and my dispatch number within a minute.
That startles me. So if you go to the exotic, then something here is crying out for help.
Or is it giving us a warning?
again, ascribing all kinds of paranormal explanations to what is essentially a malfunctioning cell phone. You see the leap? This is quite a leap. Glitching cell phone is somehow paranormal.
Triple logical fallacy grand slam. Travis Taylor, you win all these prizes. Epiphany, I think which phone is related to the biggest. Correlation causation fallacy. Presuppositional fallacy. I'll cover this more later in the video. For assuming that no other causes for the phone to do that. Hasty generalization fallacy. False equivalence fallacy. Since the NSA, a people authority fallacy, can't even hack a phone, then only super technology can. Affirmative consequent fallacy. Taking a true conditional statement. If a phone is hacked, then the phone will flip out. In biology, it's converse. If a phone flips out, it must be hacked by aliens. Non-cyber fallacy.
To be expected.
Now we're going to get into the website and the garbage on that website.
In this world. Saying that nothing is clear, they're trying to muddy the waters. They're trying to convey the message that there are some things that science can't explain, hence why they go to God.
Aliens.
It's aliens.
I mean,
Definitely
sorry.
aliens, Patrick Sheehan.
Carl Sagan described a philosophy that so resonated with me that I adopted it immediately. He said that in science,
Yeah,
the only
Valcor, but that
sacred
means other
truth
parts of the phone
is
could
that
be
there are no
glitching or
sacred
malfunctioning
truths.
as well.
Arguments from authority are worthless. Whatever is inconsistent with the facts,
The
no matter how
Skinwalkers are trying to
fundamental
hack,
they are, must
hack
be
the bank
discarded
accounts.
or revised. And that philosophy is vastly more honest than the one I just heard. And I think Sagan's philosophy distinguishes those who sincerely seek the truth from those who pretend as if they've already found it.
People have been exposed to technology from black programs, advanced state-of-the-art high-energy technologies developed in special access programs, non-lethal weapons programs, holograms, cloaking devices, drones. What's being witnessed at the ranch has a significant national security implication.
Yes, the Skinwalkers want their cash.
I think the only national security risk here is wasting time, money, and resources looking for things that apparently aren't there, as well as scaring the general public, making people stupider into distrust in the government that the show is promoting. Whatever this is, it's far more complex than we ever anticipated. It's actually quite the opposite. It's really simple. You can't follow a 4th grade level of variable control. So in a way, this statement is kind of true. It's kind of more complex than I ever could imagine. By not simply sticking to the scientific method, you have blown my mind with how diluted and irrational this whole thing is. How could people who call themselves scientists not follow the scientific method? That's truly the confusing, complex thing here.
Yeah, and here we get into objects they can't identify.
What this thing is, you captured a UAP on camera. The secret of
If I remove the zoom in that they added, you can see how quickly it moves. This removes the possibility of it being in the midground or background, as if it were that big due to its momentum it wouldn't be able to move so quickly, meaning that this object must be relatively small and close to the camera.
By the way, this is some of their best evidence, which they showed, I believe, to Stephen Greenstreet when he visited the ranch. And I would just submit to you that if you have dumped millions of dollars into paranormal research into a particular location, and this is the best that you've gotten, that's a problem.
I wonder what this could be. Alright, fireflies. They light up, and since the camera that they are using is a night vision camera, which generally have a longer exposure time, leading to trailing effects, the camera that they are using is focused on the mid-background, making any objects in the foreground a blurry dot, just like in these firefly clips. Also, the night vision is making the footage blue, which is why everything in the image is blue. Anyways, I guess now we should get to the meat of their evidence and talk about all their other UFOs.
So I have the footage that I'd like to show you ready.
After Linda and the rest of the team finished checking out the remains of the dead cow, they joined Brandon, Dragon, and I.
And nothing says credible research like having a woman who has been caught selling 100% provably fake pictures of aliens as real pictures of aliens. A woman who has made thousands and thousands of dollars defrauding the public. Let's bring her in as an expert. The only thing that Linda Moulton Howe is an expert in is how to sell fake stories and defraud the public and make tens of thousands of dollars with 100% provably fake stories. Why would you bring in this clown, right? Why would you bring in a clown like Linda Moulton Howe? Oh, because she's famous for cattle mutilation somehow. So we have to sell a cattle mutilation. We need her to tell everybody that it's aliens, right? This is more proof, Brandon Fugel, that your entire raison d'etre here, the reason for your whole team being is to sell fake stories. Because why would you bring in a person who has provably sold fake stories so many different times to bolster the claims of your clown scientist PhD?
The command center, where Eric was eager to share with us something amazing he noticed in the surveillance footage.
The surveillance cameras captured the ordeal that this animal went through, Tom. The cow is right here. What we'll do is go forward very slowly and watch what happens.
Yes, she has her fake sources guiding her.
Watch
Yes.
how she moves. It's interesting.
Now you see the cow starts
Yeah.
to get up. And I'm going to do this very slowly, frame by frame.
Definitely
so we
a
can watch
gin.
what's happening
Yes.
with her. I can't help but also notice that there's something happening here.
Whoa, look at that. Look at that.
It looks like an object above the tree. It looks like an object above the tree.
And it happens right when the cow moves, raises up.
Wow! The cow just so happened to stand up right when the UFO flew overhead. It must be aliens.
Go back and show them where you first see it, Harry.
Okay, so this is where something else does enter the frame. The next frame, the object is here. The cow is trying to get up on her feet.
And that could literally
The
be anything.
cow reacted.
Right.
The moment that object appeared above the cow
Yeah, wow,
was
a black
reacting.
dot.
Yes.
It's also funny when they show the clip, they don't show the full clip. They use clever editing zoomed in and only show 2 frames and never play the whole clip zoomed out.
I wonder why.
Oh, right.
Yes, this is deceptive editing, which is something, Mr. Fugel, that your entire team and you have done since the beginning of your so-called scientific scientific research project into this ranch. If you had good material, you would not need to deceptively edit it to make it look better. And there have been various examples of them using extremely deceptive editing to try to push that a certain event or thing was a certain way, or this is very incredibly deceptive. And it is more proof that this is the hunt for Skinwalker cash, not for the truth about Skinwalker Ranch, but rather a search for Skinwalker cash.
It's obvious. If they were to play it in its entirety, it would be obvious that it's actually quite close to the camera and it isn't that far away object that they want it to be.
Yeah, it could be a fly near the camera.
Seriously, if you actually had real evidence of something unexplainable, wouldn't you want to just show the clip in its entirety? Seriously, why disguise and hide parts of a clip if it's real?
I don't know what you're talking about, Lard. The cow stood up right when the fly flew over it. I can't think of any other explanation besides aliens, or the Indians' curse did it. Or maybe some type of cat, horse, human hybrid.
Yeah, it could be, or it could be a fly
And
close
now
to the
we have
camera.
this cow dying, and there's a strange object flying at really fast speeds above it.
Okay, one last time. These are small, but the ones out there are far away.
It's so stupid. Aliens or Dogon.
Small,
Yes.
far away. I forget it.
this could be the start of actually an eye-opening experience and experiment. We might
I don't know.
find some.
He's going to have an eye-opening experience.
At first, when I saw this object, my rational mind tried to make sense of it. Tried to make it look like an airplane or a bird or a bug or something. But the more I looked at it, the more
Exactly,
I thought about
DJDs.
it was not any of those.
Say it's aliens. We got 10 grand for you,
What was
Linda.
this craft doing? It was
Okay, right. So you don't think it's a bird or a plane, but why? 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 Explain your reasoning. You can't just say that it's not that after saying you thought about it for some time. That's not evidence
agree.
for it not being those things.
What was the craft doing out there, and why every time it was dying was the craft inside? And it's very intriguing as to why these two events are taking place at the same time.
Here are two clips that give off the same energy.
This is perhaps one of the most well-documented events of such a suspicious and sudden cattle death on a ranch where activity of this nature is known
And
to
by
have
the
taken
way, I
place.
just want to say, you know, I don't know what their backgrounds are, these people's backgrounds. Travis Taylor sounds like he could have spent some time on a farm just based on his southern upbringing or around animals. But cows die on ranches or farms all the time. It doesn't mean that it's some kind of paranormal event. And you notice how that other person called that object in the video a craft. There's no actual verifiable evidence that that was a craft. Could have been a bird. It could have been a fly close to the camera. They don't have evidence of a craft. You have radar tapes that show that was, for example, a 20-foot wide craft in the sky. Of course they don't. So this is all speculation, conjecture, and you know, it's like fitting the puzzle pieces to what you want the puzzle to be, you know, instead of just putting the puzzle together and seeing what the image is. They've already got an image and they're trying to fit the puzzle pieces to fit the image they've already decided. This is not science. This is garbage.
In Alien Invasion, Tomato Monster, Mexican Armada brothers, who are just regular brothers running in a van from an asteroid and all sorts of things. The movie.
This is perhaps one of the most well-documented events.
This is the best they have. A cow died and a fly flew by the camera.
Of such a suspicious and sudden death on a ranch where
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source? My source is that I... made it up. The secret...
How is it doing that?
Yeah, and by the way, Stephen Greenstreet just showed orb videos from his time at Skinwalker Ranch, which were reflections off the camera lens. And this is something that these clowns that are supposed to be scientists have done multiple times throughout the run of this so-called scientific television show.
We're pointing a laser toward the mesa where we've been detecting the abnormal amounts of radiation. But now, instead of seeing one laser spot like we should, we're seeing two. The actual laser spot that's coming back and hitting the camera is the little one. We need to go up there and look at it. We need to go up there and look at it.
They definitely need to go up there and look at it. Yes, yes. I'm a
All right, Lard,
scientist.
let's get out of the cyber matrix and do some proper experiments in reality to show how fundamentally deranged from said reality this show is.
All right. So I thought just to highlight how crazy this is, the fractal wrongness, I decided just to do a quick little physical real life model. That's camera A. It's basically parallel from this wall. You're about 8 feet away. This guy is camera B. He's at a little bit of an angle to the wall, like the footage we saw was. So I'm going to be shining my laser from over where camera.
And this is the kind of thing that when you see this, the layers of deception that are being employed by a so-called research scientist in the form of Travis Taylor to sell this garbage becomes so apparent. He's a PhD level physicist and he can't do these experiments and show that what they're showing on the television show are nothing burgers?
A is, and then we'll see what camera B sees, and I'll do that same pattern of the weird hook thing. So this would be pretty accurate to how the show was filming it. And then I'll go to the other examples on why they're completely wrong about all the other things. But just a quick, brief thing just to show how absolutely absurd this whole stupid situation is.
I have my laser right here.
All right. So let me turn off.
I got the lights.
All right. Now I'm shining it directly at the wall.
Wow, a second dot.
And I'll do the little thing that was happening in the video.
Wait a second. Does that mean that there are aliens in this room?
No, as you can see, the second dot seems to mimic the original dot, rotating around the middle of the screen, its axis of rotation. I wonder why. Oh, right, this is because it's an internal lens reflection. To put it simply, the middle of the lens is the axis of rotation because any internal reflection that bounces while coming in and rebounds is hitting the top of the concave lens, making it cross-axis when coming down again towards the sensor will make it seem as though that there are two lights. However, closer inspection will show that they are inversely mimicking each other around an axis of rotation. The second bounce will be doing the inverse of the original light path, and the former will be dimmer due to losses in light intensity from reflection. As you can see in this clip of a silver hemisphere bowl I found at a store, my camera's reflection in the bowl is parallel to my camera, as it's a direct reflection back to my camera, meaning my reflection's camera is the axis of rotation, and you can notice my finger's reflection follows my original finger inversely around that axis of rotation.
And isn't it interesting that Travis Taylor is a PhD level physicist? He would know, or he should know, that this is a reflection. This is not something paranormal. This is not something alien. This is not, a skinwalker affecting the laser somehow. He knows, being a physicist, exactly what this is. And instead of just acknowledging what it truly is, he uses this as an excuse to generate fake paranormal activity on the ranch so that they have something to sell so that he keeps getting his paychecks. He's a scientist. This one's so stupid.
But now, instead of seeing one laser spot like we should, we're seeing two. The actual laser spot that's coming back in the camera is the little one. We need to go up there and look at it.
All right, let's go.
It's like
This is literally like watching a clown show.
walking on Mars or something.
Mr. PhD.
The rocks in the soil.
And by the way, this same guy, Travis Taylor, was the head scientist for ATIP or OSAP or something, right? Some government UFO program. He's the head scientist. Boy, that gives me such confidence in the government's ability to determine the reality of the UFO phenomenon when they got a crackpot scientist idiot like this guy. Either he is totally incompetent or he is totally on the take to get those Skinwalker cash paychecks. Those are the only two possibilities: total incompetence and stupidity, or intentional deception in order to get paid to study so-called paranormal activity, which none of this is paranormal. There's all very ordinary physics explanations for what we're seeing here. But he's somehow a PhD level physicist. He's not catching this stuff. I think that he is intentionally deceiving the public in order to get his Skinwalker cash paychecks.
Of the Skinwalker Ridge Mesa have an extremely high amount of some kind of crystalline material. So I'm wondering if there's a reflection happening up on the mesa that's causing the laser beam to split into 2 points of light instead of one.
My poor brain.
There are these little white discs everywhere. I don't know what it is. The laser experiment was inconclusive, but what we did
Inconclusive?
with this experiment
Inconclusive?
is that the mesa is highly reflective.
Brain damage! Brain damage!
All right, now again, just to highlight why this is such a bad idea.
Stop! He's already
Imagine I'm the cameraman. The laser, right, is taking this path. What he's trying to say is that maybe the surface is just like shiny or something, right? Now, I don't have a shiny blanket or reflective blanket, but I do have this little mirror, and just pretending like that's the shiny surface should suffice. The problem is, the only way his hypothesis would work was if the canvas that the mountain was made out of was flat, right? Because if you had bumps in it, like this, and you had your laser bouncing off of it, kind of hard for me to show. But if you imagine these being three bumps, would have an area where it would be reflective, right? And let's say it did hit it, but essentially it'd be skipping over things, right? But on the video footage, you can actually see that not only does it hit everything perfectly, it also goes in front of where the sky should be. Here's a crazy thing. Even if this was flat, right? Why would it all rotate on where the center of the camera is? Is he really wanting us to believe that every time when it was doing that pattern, this U thing, does he really want us to believe that all these rocks here were orientated in this like cone shape so that they would reflect perfectly and like that? That's so crazy. All of his points to falsify his own observations are already easily false, just in your head thinking about it intuitively. This is fractal wrongness.
Is that the mesa is highly reflective. There's something to this place. I just don't know what it is.
A lot of people do that.
But Lard, how do we know that it's not there because of your flat wall?
So we basically know for sure that it's just internal lens reflection, but now I'm going to use a little magnifying glass with a convex lens and a little piece of glass, put them together like a normal lens has, put it in front of the camera, and I'll just show again how there's another bounce. Same thing, but for camera B, I'm going to add, of course, this little array.
Grad student. He's a science grad student, and he's smarter than Travis Taylor. That's for sure.
So something like that. Oh wow, there's a lot of bounces now. Look at that. There are so many bounces. I wonder why.
Well, we can't encourage illegal activity.
The surface must have all these pebbles in it that make it bounce. That's why this is happening. All right.
Now that's interesting, especially since we've seen in the past the mesa seeming to glow and there being beams of light coming up from the mesa. There's something
no.
this place. I just don't know
what. Scientist, right?
Can't see anything looking at him here.
You can only see them with the infrared camera.
The secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
That's odd. Let's try this.
I agree, Patrick. This kid's good.
Fat lot of good that PhD does me now,
You can only see them with the infrared camera.
I asked for its permission to be here. I asked if I could give a blessing to the land, because this is the land which God has made. And it's the role of a rabbi, of course, to be a conduit of the blessings of God.
While he's doing the chant, I happen to notice that there's some kind of anomaly in front of the
I agree,
doorway of
Colorado.
Homestead 2.
Shalom. Shalom Aleichem.
Eric, come here a minute.
You seeing something?
Look at the difference in the FLIR imagery now. It's completely changed.
I've not seen this do this before.
It shouldn't have changed that drastically all of a sudden. The FLIR imagery completely changed. It's like the canopy of
Well,
the
that's
trees
interesting,
was
John
super
Lies.
hot.
Okay.
And then everything underneath it where the house is, look at it's just completely cold.
Yeah, it's like in temperature layers
now. Wait, are you serious? Oh man, I hate to be so rude for laughing, but I learned about this when I was in the 4th grade. Although I had a great teacher, so I guess it's now my turn to enlighten
This
you.
guy
Just in the
learned
same
about
way my
how to
amazing 4th
explain
grade
this
teacher.
phenomenon in the 4th grade, and Travis Taylor is a PhD level physicist, and he can't figure it out. Great.
Mr. Bow did to me back not even a decade ago. Okay, so first, air is made out of particulate matter. This particulate matter varies in its density based on how quick its atoms are vibrating. The faster a collection of vibrating atoms are, the hotter it would be, and conversely, the less density it would have, as all the atoms will be bumping into each other, expanding until it meets an equilibrium to the outside pressure.
That's on
Once
the
it
next
becomes less
season.
dense, it would
Yeah,
naturally rise
good
due to
idea.
the outside density being higher, like a balloon underwater returning to the surface because of how heavy the water is relative to the balloon. This is referred to as buoyancy, and it's also the reason why hot air
Shalom
balloons
Dogman,
with
yes.
heated air expanding, making the craft rise till it can match its outside pressure. What we are seeing here is just a small building that has trees shading it from the sun and from drafts of warm air, which is keeping the air stagnant and continually cold.
The temperature around the homestead itself began to drop. It began to plummet.
These entities are always described as being very cold.
So what that means is suddenly the treetops are super warm and everything underneath it got super cool.
Yes, it's kosher now.
Guys, look now. Look right here. Does it see how the heat is coming down this tree and it's heating up around this area and it's creating this cold vortex in the middle suddenly? That is odd.
I agree.
Now it's heating up. Look, now it's heating up in the middle of it. Suddenly, the temperature over the homestead area turns extremely hot, and then it starts to fall, and it wraps around the homestead.
What happened for this drastic change, the thermal camera is really sensitive, is simply a gust of wind hit the house slightly, displacing the colder air to the outside. Currents of air moving over objects and transfer their vibrational energy, making the objects cold or hot. Check out this demonstration with the old firefighting thermal camera and a fan. I'm able to demonstrate something that should be apparently obvious if you've ever been outside.
Going up to 85. 85? All right, hit the fan. Drop down to 81, 79.
However, here's a much better example from Thunderfoot, who has a much better thermal camera. The heat from the lungs warms the air on exhale, and the cold air rushing past is filtrum and nose,
Apparently
what
not,
causes
Nick
it to
D.
cool down. This is known as convection, and in fact, they actually ironically prove this without even realizing it.
Alleged portals had been seen, and now we're seeing an anomaly through our FLIR camera.
What
after
portal?
a rabbi does a ceremony to
What portal
open
was seen?
portals.
There's
There's
no
nothing going
portal.
to keep me from going down there to see what's going on.
I agree. They don't know basic physics. And he's supposed to be a physicist.
Feel the difference.
How does he not know basic
Oh,
physics
wow.
like this?
It's freezing right here.
It is freezing
absolutely cold right here. Oh my goodness.
Okay, you are right in the center of that region.
It is freezing cold right here in front of the homestead.
I'm a scientist. I'm Travis Taylor. I'm a physicist. I'm a scientist.
I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress?
What the hell are you talking about? This company is being bled like a stuffed pig, Mac, and I got a paper trail to prove it. Check this out.
Oh, no.
Take a look at this. Jesus Christ. That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail for you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia. This name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. I gotta go up to his office. I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. He's gonna keep coming back down here. So I go up to Pepe's office, and what do I find out, Mac? What do I find out?
True that.
There is no Pepe Sylvia. The man does not exist, okay? So I decided, oh, shit, buddy, I got to dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe Sylvia. You got to be kidding me. I got boxes full of Pepe. All right, so I start marching my way down to Carol and HR, and I knock on her door, and I say, Carol, I got to talk to you about Pepe. And when I open the door, what do I find? There's not a single goddamn desk in that office. There is no Carol in HR. Mac, half the employees in this building have been made up. This office is a goddamn ghost town.
Okay, Charlie, I'm going to have to stop you right there. Not only do all of these people exist, but they have been asking for their mail on a daily basis. It's all they're talking about up there. Jesus Christ, dude. All of this was for nothing. God damn it, dude. I'm having a panic attack. I'm actually having a panic
Will you
attack.
settle down and have another cup of coffee?
I am, bro.
All right, well, fine. You know what, Barney? Give this guy a cigarette. He's freaking out.
Huh? Who?
Barney. He's the guy who tipped me off to Pepe Sylvia.
Barney? Who the hell is Barney?
You don't see Oh, shit. What the hell did he...
You've lost your mind. You've lost your goddamn mind, Charlie.
From the
creators of ancient aliens.
Brandon Fugo is the owner of Skinwalker Ranch, and he joins us live. I've
here's
interviewed
the
a
head
lot of
himself.
astronomers, and they say we've got hundreds and hundreds of cameras on the skies 24 hours
You
a
are
day.
correct.
And we
Same
never
producers
see
as Ancient
anything.
Aliens
Why
garbage.
is it that we should believe people who see things in the wilderness?
Yeah, good question. As seen on our show, we have truly documented unidentified aerial phenomena and other strange activity with high frequency at this particular location. We're using science and technology.
Well, we've seen the level of science that they're using. They're using a physicist that is willing to fudge the data, that is willing to stand there and issue 100% provably false scientific statements in order to sell fake paranormal activity, right? And we have seen a physicist that is apparently either so incompetent, so stupid, or so intentionally deceptive that he makes false statements that are nothing more than pseudoscience or his opinion, not based on science, many, many, many times.
To not only document it, but also figure out really what is happening. Who's to say it's really aliens or beings from other worlds? It could be other dimensions. It could be time travelers. Who knows? All that we know is
it could have something to do with Brandon Fugel's magic underwear. And I don't think it's a coincidence that all the people at the ranch, with I think the possible exception of Travis Taylor, are all Mormons.
that there's continued strange
So
activity.
they've all got magic
and
underwear.
It's being documented better than ever. Well, get ready. It's going to be jaw-dropping. You're going to see some of the best evidence ever presented in the public domain relative to the reality of a lot of this
Relative
this
to the
strange,
reality, yes,
activity and the claims.
This is great stuff. I could make a career out of this guy. You see how clever this part is? How it doesn't require a shred of proof? And most paranoid delusions are intricate, but this
Brandon Fugel and Paranoid Delusions.
Oh, how could the History Channel air this nonsense?
Television channels like the History Channel are just like any other modern company, very corporatized. And corporatization in relatively liquid markets, such as the TV industry, breeds a correlation to wanting to min-max net profits, meaning they care more about
Interesting.
profit than, well, about the content of
Yeah,
the channel.
they're
which
gonna
is
put a
why there are
hotel
shows
there,
like Ice Road
Maddie.
Truckers, Swamp People, Sliced, Ancient Aliens. The list goes on. Like,
They trust
seriously,
people
what
with
does a
magic underwear.
drama-based
You're
reality
right, Ben
TV
Lindsay
show
Gordon.
about modern truckers have anything to do with history? It's obvious the History Channel cares more about viewership.
As sadly, real science is boring, and when you give these crazy answers, you incite fear into people and keep them coming back with the false pretense that this show is really scientific.
Even though their optical scientist doesn't understand a basic optical phenomenon.
And uses appeal to ignorance fallacies, as well as the God of the Gaps logical fallacy argument.
Alien of the Gaps argument.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Of course. And using science to promote metaphysical explanations isn't even a new concept. All of the hundreds of ghost hunting and paranormal
Yeah,
television
Travis
shows
Taylor's
use
the only
scientific
one that's not a
equipment,
Mormon.
at best inadequately, or at the worst,
Deliberately misleading.
to try and make the argument that we have proof.
Even though by definition, something that is metaphysical or supernatural defies natural law, meaning it defies the laws of physics, literally meaning it's physically impossible.
Indeed. Furthermore, this is
Yeah.
not a scientific desire to learn more about reality. This is just wanting an easy explanation, such as aliens did it,
Yeah,
or the
I'm not
cursed
aware of
land
what
did
that's
it.
about.
In fact, every
Jamie.
piece of evidence this show
But
brings
it could
forth
be a
isn't even evidence
transmitter
at all. It's just
somewhere.
something we can't explain.
I'll
or
look
well,
into
funny,
it.
as I can, but they can't. So it's really just a group of people trying their best to find things they can't explain, then say, oh yes, God did it, or sorry, aliens or something else. This is really no different than the initial proposals of the formation of the rainbow. That was a bridge between Earth and Asgard, a rainbow serpent who would suck up the water in the dry season to spit it out in the wet season. It's a bow that would shoot lightning, or in a popular myth book, promised by a powerful god never to destroy a world again by flood. However, while all these models account for the existence of the rainbow, they have zero predictive capability. They are poor models. Meanwhile, the application of science delivered by many critical and inquiring minds gathered and scrutinized the crushing body of physical evidence, and tempered by reasoned logic, they converged on the now robustly tested model that rainbows are formed by light refracted by water. Saying aliens did it, or God, etc., that's not an actual explanation. It's at the very best a placeholder for one. And whatever other faulty lines of reasoning the crappy shows are proposing to get their clicks and views up. Especially if the shows are dangling keys in your face telling you that the show is showing you the truth that no one else will.
Yeah, I agree. You're showing us the truth while you're deceiving us. You wouldn't need to deceive us.
to have global confirmation of this, a lot of disturbing things will occur. It's just too powerful.
Have there been experiences there that have shaken the
Oh, we
Pentagon
gotta
and
throw some
CIA
math
and
in
other
there.
agencies? Absolutely.
Nobody knows.
This
is 30 or 40 hours of material that the public has never seen before.
That we recorded right after I purchased the ranch.
Now, just in case some people watching this are too dim to get it, or at least feign stupidity for the purpose of sophistry, the keys are metaphorical for how inadequately it totes for the veil of scientific adequacy.
Yeah, it's a great tactic for audience retention, because on a large scale, in a hypothetical population dynamic setting, if you had two shows broadcasted to similar numbers of people, the show with some sort of secret insight that's claiming it's the true red pill, and that everyone else is sheep or like a blue pillar, it's no wonder why intellectually vacuous shows like these tend to prosper in our media.
It seems to sadly also work really well. Wait, what's that? What's going on? What's that noise?
Don't waste your breath. Watch me speedrun this.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
As if we even existed in a universe where optical reflections weren't the answer, and if we had no clue why the light was circling around it like that, asserting aliens did it is just as valid as saying that God did it.
Or the flying spaghetti monster. It's the question-begging logical fallacy.
For example, the statement, green is the best color because it is the greenest of all colors, claims that the color green is the best because it is the greenest, which it presupposes is the best. It's the same thing when a stupid Homo economicus type ponders what is the meaning of life. It's stupid, because it presupposes that life even has a meaning. Many hominids still don't understand the basic concept of how their own thoughts are organized by their pattern-finding brains, which is how featherless bipeds find their minds to be as stable as tripedal post-op dogs when it comes to pondering lengthily and exquisite detail, completely disregarding their obvious question-begging logical fallacies.
As no matter which angle we choose to approach this from, there's a viable explanation for this regardless. But there's an even more important point here, which is if none of these ideas had ever been considered, if none of the calculations had ever been done, if humans had no explanation, no idea how this happened, would that mean that there is no explanation?
Well, no, of course not. Us lacking an explanation for a phenomenon does not mean that the phenomenon can't be explained. It just means we haven't explained it yet. If all other data we know about the universe points to optical refractions and moreover that the universe is governed by natural laws, but we happen to have a couple outstanding questions like,
but why is there a second dog?
Hey, that was Lard's line. Look, just please refrain from interjecting, Conceptionist.
Anyway, continuing on what you said, we wouldn't just throw up our hands and assume it must be from aliens or some other equally redundant vestigial appendage explanatory concept.
That's not a way to learn about the world. It's a way to avoid learning about the world, as any unexplained thing can explain any other unexplained thing.
As someone who truly wants to learn, would see that all the evidence points towards a naturalistic universe, and therefore instead of begging the question of what supernatural thing caused this to happen, they would instead try to figure out if there are any parallels in data already observed, and would try to use past knowledge to build a better understanding of our world, instead of the presupposition garbage that these lines of malformed reason lead to.
Man, these Homo interrogants are so intellectually lazy. So stupid. I can't bear this anymore, Lard.
Hey, they aren't stupid.
I would beg to differ, as when I say stupid, what I mean is, it's never what you think that proves you're stupid. It's why you think it, and being a complete fool with your equipment is not the sort of why that would lead me to think that you're smart. But here's something very important for you to understand about my opinion here. Stupidity is not a permanent condition. It's a way of thinking that you've learned, or at least not learned to avoid. So when I call someone stupid, it means they're exhibiting certain kinds of failures of thought. One,
I think he's calling Travis Taylor stupid here, but I could be wrong. But I think that's a valid criticism based on the fact that this guy is a grad student in science and he knows physics better than a PhD level optical physicist.
An
optical physicist that didn't understand that laser event it's just hard to believe. It's absolutely hard to believe.
Failure to identify and ask all relevant questions and notice incomplete or irrelevant answers to them.
2. A failure to recognize patterns while excluding false positives.
3. A failure to adequately generalize principles without overgeneralizing.
4. A failure to correctly distinguish between distinct, even subtly distinct concepts, and conversely, a failure to recognize when seemingly distinct concepts are actually identical in their relevant features. Things like that. All sorts of things might promote these failures of thought, religious indoctrination just being one of them, although a very widespread and effective one. But I'm not convinced that the basic cognitive ability needed to succeed at these critical thinking tasks is an inbuilt feature of some people and not others.
Excluding people with genuine cognitive impairment, of course, the problems we have listed don't take a rare genius to avoid. Just exercising a little care is enough, as every single one of us is going to have those moments where we get a little sloppy and we act stupid. We believe something that isn't properly justified. We don't believe something that is. We get emotional. We don't listen to reason. Whatever. You can't make yourself a...
Yeah, and I just want to point out that this gentleman is apparently too not very well informed, I would say. He's very well informed on the science that they are screwing up through this entire television show. But I think as far as the motivations of the people involved, he doesn't really get into, I would think being a grad student in science, he would know that an optical physicist, PhD scientist like Travis Taylor should know about these laser things with the reflection of the camera lens and these other optical principles, especially that show exactly what we're looking at. And but maybe he is just not very familiar with the hunt for Skinwalker cash and just how many people have tried to cash in on this whole Skinwalker phenomenon for money. And I know, like I said, there's really just two possibilities when it comes to Travis Taylor. Either he's completely and totally stupid and incompetent, or he is intentionally deceiving the audience so that he could get a paycheck.
100% not stupid. But stupidity is something that you can minimize with a little determined practice.
But to do that, you're going to have to internalize the fact that you can and will be wrong at times, and you'll have to be willing to change or even outright abandon any opinion you hold when you receive valid criticism of your evidence or evidence to the contrary.
We had to go into our heads, through every step in detail. We had to go into our heads. Total explosion upon ignition. Failure is always an option. When we fail, we've learned things. Information is key. It never ceases to amaze me.
This can be really uncomfortable at times, but it'll help you be less wrong more often. In other words, it can take real commitment to learning the truth, even if that truth is emotionally unappealing or goes against something you spent a long time believing, or if it's the exact opposite of everything you've...
And by the way, I just want to take a moment to make sure that I ask a very important question. All of you people who interview Brandon Fugel and do the UFO circle jerk and don't bring up these points that his chief lead scientist, PhD level physicist, is making high school amateur hour science mistakes, either, out of incompetence or out of a purposeful intent to deceive people so that he keeps getting a paycheck, you're not doing anybody any favors. So all you UFO circle jerkers who have Brandon Fugel on and just lick his asshole the whole time and don't bring these things up, you're all goddamn cowards. These are important questions that Brandon Fugel should be forced to answer to. His lead scientist is either an idiot or a scammer. That's where we're at with the hunt for Skinwalker cash. Brandon Fugel's lead PhD scientist is either a goddamn incompetent idiot or an intentional scammer. Why is he not fired, Brandon Fugel, for incompetence? Do you want him deceiving people? Apparently you do, because there's another scientist on the team. So you've got two incompetent idiot assholes pushing completely fake, false science information. That's their job, to be scientists that you pay. You're paying idiots that claim to be scientists that are either, again, completely stupid and incompetent, or are intentionally scamming not just the public, but perhaps you, Brandon Fugel, who is giving them a paycheck for lying to people, for intentionally deceiving people about science. Is that the job that you hired them for? To intentionally come up with fake paranormal activity so that you have a television show? Or do you really want to get to the truth? If you really want to get to the truth, fire your 2 clown scientists immediately.
Ever hoped was true.
But the unfortunate fact is that humans being human don't always hold the truth as being more valuable than their ego or their feelings. Speaking of ego or feelings, I don't think that they're actually stupid, as it seems this guy is an optical scientist. Like, just look at all the places where he's worked at. He is doing this because he is a science fiction author and has a conflict of interest that is making him cognitively biased in this. It's like when every religion lies to promote God. Even if they are telling a lie and know it, they still feel good as it's the end goal that matters, being that you go to heaven or whatnot. The purpose of this video is to show how the TV show from the History Channel, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, is just like any other ghost paranormal TV show. It all relies on drama, it's clearly scripted, it doesn't bring any new scientific information to the table. Furthermore, to show the evidence for this show's misrepresentation of science and the scientific method. As science is all about making models of reality with predictive capability, and there is a clear absence of that on the show. The show puts on a scientific mirage, with figures such as Travis Taylor being utilized solely to appeal to ethos.
He put him in a dunce cap. Hey, Brandon Fugel, your lead scientist has got a dunce cap on, and it's a grad student who knows more about physics and science than your lead scientist. You are all, I'm going to send all the members of the Skinwalker Ranch science team. Well, there's only 2 of them, but we're not made of money here, but we're going to purchase some clown shoes. We're going to get them some really good clown shoes, and we're going to send some clown, we'll buy 3. We're going to splurge and buy 3 sets of clown shoes. 1 for each of Brandon Fugel's employed science experts and 1 for him. And they can all walk around Skinwalker Ranch in clown shoes from here on out.
And authority. On top of this, science is only used for illusionary purposes to deceive their gullible audience into believing into their false credibility. It's as if I were to tell you a story and get you all emotionally invested in it. Then I start laying out evidence in a manner that relies on the initial story, and all the subsequent evidence I provide to you seems to all point to aliens or the paranormal being responsible. You might actually start to believe me.
Thankfully, we live in a world where evidence matters more than your mere subjective feelings. Hitchkin's razor determines that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, of which the show absolutely falters to bring forth, to such a high degree that even if supernatural things did exist, which they can't because of the aforementioned little details like the laws of physics and thermodynamics. Anyway, this show would still be absolutely wrong, as they haven't shown anything paranormal or extraterrestrial. In fact, shows like these can have the exact opposite effect, as again, even if hypothetically otherworldly things did exist, this show was managed so poorly that it would harm the credibility of any real evidence that the show could actually bring.
But that's okay, as the show hasn't even brought anything.
Well, it's brought an awful lot of deception, and it's made a lot of people an awful lot of money.
Oh, that removes...
Travis Taylor's making an awful lot of money on this television show for being completely and totally factually wrong on the science. And by the way, that's his job on the show, is to be the science expert. You failed miserably, Brandon Fugel, in who you chose to hire as a science expert. And why, oh God, on God's green earth, would you continue to employ a person who we can prove has been intentionally either completely incompetent at his assigned task or been completely and totally 100% deceptive in his so-called scientific analysis?
Some neurons from my head.
Oh, I know, right? Gotta love my species.
Good thing those were all Homo habilis.
I hate to break it to you, and don't think less of me for sharing the same monophyletic clade, but those are actually Homo sapiens.
You're joking.
No, sadly.
Oh man, that show was truly stupid.
No, deliberately misleading.
No, stupid.
Deliberately misleading.
No, stupid.
No, deliberately.
Stupid.
All right.
The true beauty of a self-inquiring sentient universe
is lost on those who elect to walk
the intellectually vacuous path of comfortable,
paranoid fantasies.
All right, we made it through. Ooh! Great. And I just want to take a moment to recognize this young man. He has a YouTube channel called Lard, Larddd, 4 Ds. And he got very few views for this, 2,000 views. So that'll show you what we have repeated here many, many times, that the truth is boring. Doesn't get a lot of clicks and views, does it? But it doesn't take away from the fact that the truth remains the truth. And, hyped up false fake science promoted by a wackadoo. I think it's clear to just call Travis Taylor a wackadoo at this point. He has been either, again, there's only two possibilities here. Either Brandon Fugel's so-called science expert is the most incompetent, idiotic, stupid science expert ever shown on a television show, or he is a scammer who is intentionally falsely making statements, who is intentionally scientifically misleading the audience down a path that he wants them to take, which is supernatural stuff, paranormal activity. None of this is paranormal. None of what we have witnessed tonight is paranormal. None of what we have witnessed that they are claiming is supernatural can be proven to be supernatural or paranormal. And in fact, there are valid, real scientific explanations for some of the things that they are showing people. So what do we think? Let me know in the live chat. Is Brandon Fugel in on the scam, the Skinwalker scam? He must be, because there's no way on God's green earth that an intelligent man can watch what we have just shown you and continue to employ these two clowns. Remember, there's another one whose name escapes me. Maybe somebody knows it in the live chat. Why would you continue to employ these people as science experts when even a grad student can show that Travis Taylor doesn't even have the very... I'm just flabbergasted here. Like, I don't even know what to say. A science grad student in college can show that Travis Taylor's so-called science isn't science. It's a joke. This whole thing is either, there's only two possibilities. I'm going to keep hammering that point home. And that is, the two possibilities are that Travis Taylor and the show's other science expert are either both the stupidest science experts ever hired on a television show, completely and totally incompetent and unable to make even the most basic scientific observations and determinations, or his two science experts are scammers who are intentionally, with great effort and willingly, deceiving the public into believing in paranormal activity and supernatural activity that's just not there and can be explained by normal physics and scientific methodology. Those are the only two possibilities. So I would ask, either of those possibilities means that Brandon Fugel has to immediately fire his two science experts, or risk the public saying that Brandon Fugel is okay with his two science experts being one of those two things, either completely and totally scientifically incompetent and stupid, or intentionally deceptive in order to sell a narrative. Those are the possibilities here, Brandon. And in either case, Mr. Fugel, your unwillingness to fire these two so-called scientific experts shows that you're in on it. You have to be in on it, because if you really cared about having real science experts study and try to explain the so-called phenomenon you claim is happening on a regular basis at your ranch, it's not a good look for Mr. Fugel that it's easy to pick apart the lack of science foundation of these so-called paranormal and supernatural claims. I believe that, maybe Mr. Fugel really did want to get to the truth of this thing, but you get mired up in television show deals and book deals and contracts and documentary deals. And, for all I know, Travis Taylor has some kind of contract where he can't be just fired from the show. Then you walk away, Brandon, Mr. Fugel. You own the ranch. You could go to the ranch tomorrow, change the locks, and say none of these people who have been either completely incompetent or intentionally deceiving people to sell a predetermined narrative are welcome on my property. He has the right to do that. And his apparent lack of willingness to do that speaks volumes about Mr. Fugel. I can only assume that Mr. Fugel's in on the Skinwalker scam for cash, because somebody who really did care about getting to the truth and really did care about having good scientific people working on the so-called problem would not employ completely incompetent or deceptive science experts that are literally running around finding strange things that they can use to bolster a narrative. This is where we're at, and this is where we find ourselves. Now, I do want to take a moment to remind you that we are a viewer-supported show. And every time we do this, a bunch of people jump off. I don't know why. I get it. People don't like commercials, but these are very, very quick. So I'm here to remind you that the show is not over. We're going to take a quick break just to remind you that we're a viewer-supported show. And we'll be right back, friends.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truth Seekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Thanks for being here. This is Truth Seekers with your host, Stephen Campion. Please rate, like, and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truth Seekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers.
Okay, we are back, and I should remind you that I'm still recovering from the dreaded COVID. Felt a little worse today than I felt yesterday, but of course, I'm stupid and forgot some of my medication this morning. I have a little bit more time to share. B. Baker reminding everybody the show is not over. Victor Waggy guilt trip me staying. Yes. Well, questions or comments for me, please put them in all capital letters. We'll take some questions and comments. Amy Collins says, I still like my idea of turning Skinwalker Ranch into a petting zoo. It would go far. That's pretty interesting, right? Absolutely, right? And by the way, I have heard, I don't know if it's true, taken as rumors and speculation, but I have heard that they're going to build a hotel on Skinwalker Ranch, and people will be able to go there and, perhaps experience paranormal activity themselves, right? And Wes Snipes says, problem with these guys is their egos are so big. They're like, I'm smarter than you, therefore your opinion is invalid. And, that's fine. But when you get into scientific absolutist statements that Travis Taylor is making that is 100% provably wrong, Al Warrior says, this is why I don't bother getting cable. Yeah, I know my neighbor at the cabin asked me about this show several years ago, and I said it's garbage. But we've never really gone deep into the fake science claims that were being made. I found this video. By the way, in the description of the video is the video that we shared tonight. You guys should go over there and show this young man some love. He did a great job breaking down the fake science behind it. B. Baker saying the Employee of the Month award at Skinwalker always goes to the biggest liar who went with the worst evidence. Yes. And Secret Agent Red Sauce says dressing up animals as aliens is cruel to the animals. I agree. And B. Baker says Brandon is profiting off of it. Billionaires don't like to lose money, even though he doesn't need the money. Yeah, he definitely doesn't need any money, right? Educating the populace might help. Buyer beware. Yeah, and that goes for all of these things, right? Yeah, who was the good Nazi forcing everybody to agree that the cow reacted to the object? Yeah, great. At least when you go to a magic show, you know it's not real. The ranch is a show, but the audience doesn't know that. Yeah, it's very deceptive. I think it's partly Mormon buddies trying to make $1. Reed, Fugel, etc., all Mormons. Yeah, it's interesting how many Mormons have been involved with the ranch. These shows should come with a disclaimer, though, out the show stating not everything mentioned in such shows is factually true by law. Yeah. Yeah. Corbell grifted Skinwalker Ranch, so it's a sign right there. Yeah, and so did George Knapp. So there's been a long line of UFO profiteering whores trying to get in on the Skinwalker cash. The hunt for the Skinwalker cash will continue. And there's no signs of this letting up. I think it got approved for a 4th season now, right? So we can look forward to more scientifically invalid analysis by so-called science experts who have to ignore science in order to sell the narrative that this place is a paranormal hotspot. I want to make sure that we hammer home the point that every person who interviews Brandon Fugel licks his asshole and does the UFO circle jerk with Brandon Fugel, right? They don't ask him about these very important deceptions that are being put forth by his so-called science experts. If your science experts need to literally make up fake science and ignore reality of real science and real physics in order to sell your narrative, then it shows that you are deceptive. And Mr. Fugel likes to pretend that he's a Christian. A Christian would not intentionally employ people who were lying to people in order to sell something. A Christian wouldn't do that. So Brandon Fugel, you have to have a maybe come to what is that angel in the Mormon faith, Moroni? You have to have a come to Jesus moment or a come to Moroni moment, and decide whether you want to continue to employ either completely and totally incompetent science experts or deceptive science experts. You have to make that call. But I got to tell you that allowing your so-called science experts to continue to be employed by you, it's not a good look for you. It looks like you're in on it and that you are either condoning or encouraging the behavior of your science experts being incompetent and or deceptive in order to sell a product. And make no mistake about it, that's what they're doing. They are selling you a product. And if you ask me, it's an extremely flawed product. And speaking of products to sell, you'll notice I'm wearing one of our lovely Truthseekers logo t-shirts. These wonderful t-shirts we now have available. In the description of our video, there's 2 separate storefronts. One of them is an Amazon store. So if you're in the United States or Great Britain, you can get one of these bad boys delivered straight to your door, usually the next day or within 2 days. Otherwise, if you're in a country like Canada or Australia or some other countries that Amazon will not deliver to, use the second link in the description of the video, the Redbubble store, and you can get some Truthseekers merchandise. I believe that it should. Nick D, does this fakery open them up to liability? I think it should, because they're selling tickets to live events based on this trickery, deception, and let's just call it what it is. It is a form of consumer fraud, in my opinion. But again, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not a lawyer. But it looks to me like this is a form of consumer fraud. They're saying that this is paranormal activity. This is supernatural activity. And it can be very easily explained as normal, earthly, ordinary things in some cases that they're hyping as supernatural or paranormal. But, you know, there is a gray area there. Strange Recon Radio, the product Skinwalker Ranch dressing. Yeah, we're gonna look into that. Maybe we'll start selling. Look, if Brandon Fugel's going to make money on this stupid shit, I'm going to make some money off of it too. So maybe we'll have Truthseekers Skinwalker Ranch dressing, right? Or how about Truthseekers Skinwalker Ranch corn chips? We can't call them Doritos. We'll get sued. And I don't think that we can use the term Skinwalker Ranch because, well, then again, if it's dressing, yeah, it's a gray area. Yeah. Yes, and Ganja73 says there's nothing out there. A family lived there for 60 years before these goofballs. Yes, and no reports of strange or unusual or supernatural activity, right? Dollar signs, money hovering around Brandon Fugel blur people's vision and cloud their senses. I absolutely agree, right? Class action lawsuit, I mean, maybe, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, right? Patty says Fugel is proud of what he's doing. Well, great. Then that means he's proud of employing imbeciles, idiots, scientific experts that don't know basic high school level physics. Great. Or employing people that are intentionally deceiving people, you know, and you're the boss, Mr. Fugel. The buck stops at you. So, you know, I'm blocked on Twitter, but I'm going to try to maybe have somebody tweet tonight's broadcast at him, see if he has any comment on this. But he doesn't like it when people look. Tonight's broadcast has the hunt for Skinwalker cash by the balls. There is no excuses for this level of either incompetence or intentionally lying to and deceiving an audience. There's no excuse for it. So do I think they're going to comment on it? No. And do I think any of the UFO circle jerker idiots that interviewed Brandon Fugel are actually going to ask him about this level of incompetence and deception that they're pushing as supernatural or paranormal activity? No, I don't think anybody's going to have the courage to do that, because you're not going to get him as a guest again if you actually ask him real questions, right? Reload says, hello, where can I get the same t-shirt? In the description of the video, there are 2 links. Some people are not able to get Amazon deliveries in their country. The first link is an Amazon link, which is much faster, I hear. You get the shirt the next day or 2 days. The other one, Redbubble, takes 4 or 5 days. But either way, these shirts are available in our merchandise store, and we have 2 merchandise stores, both a Redbubble storefront and an Amazon. And by the way, thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. And thank you for helping us to praise the cash. And you would be helping us to praise the cash multiple times. Well, actually, yeah, I have to thank you 3 times. Once for the kind and generous $5 super chat. Once for being a member. We love that. And of course, once for purchasing some merchandise, which also contributes to the show. Praise the Cash reload with a triple praise the cash. Thank you.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you, Reload, for your kindness, generosity, and support. And by the way, this one is probably my favorite because, and you want to know what's funny? The Truthseekers logo was done super quickly with an old program that does 3D lettering that I have called, what is it called? ULED 3D or something like that. And I realized that the logo, the original logo was terrible. So the night before our first broadcast, I redid the logos with this 3D logo maker, and it has been our logo ever since. Interesting. Just a certain font and an outline, and we were off to the races with a good logo. It's stuck ever since. This is my favorite shirt. But I got to say, it is interesting if I'm out and about and somebody says, what's that? I got to get cards made that just show how to find the podcasts. It's going to explain to them. And then that gets into a whole discussion. I say, it's a podcast. Oh, that's interesting. What do you guys talk about? And then I have to try to explain it, which is not easy to explain, but I do my best. Travis Taylor is like a dishonest Gary Busey if Gary was a grifting jerk. Yeah, Travis Taylor has been all chips in trying to get rich and famous off of paranormal activity and UFOs for a decade now, right? Fugel sucked up by seeing his face on TV playing Ghostbusters and Alien Hunters. Yeah, I believe that that's true. I believe that he got sucked into the spotlight and he doesn't want to give that up, even if there's garbage, right? This show, that show is a mutilated cash cow for Fugel. A lot of people believe that. Yeah, absolutely. And Patricia Jean is here saying, I'm so glad to see you on. Hey, everyone, much love. Good to see you there in the live chat. We want to take a moment to thank our Rumble live chatters and to thank our twitch.tv/Truthseekers show live chatters as well. I should also remind you that if you have a Amazon Prime account, you can subscribe to us on Twitch and it will cost you absolutely nothing. That's another great way to help the show out, and it costs you nothing. So we've done our due diligence for today, and I'm not sure when we will be returning. I'd like to get 1 or 2 more shows in for the week, but time is running short on the week. I wish I had been feeling better at Monday. Then we'd be 3 shows in. We're 2 shows in for the week. But, it may be a good thing to just slow down a little bit and get, quiet down the rat race a little bit. Still recovering from the dreaded COVID. And I still feel off. I feel very off. I'm able to speak and sit here for a few hours. So I'm glad that I could do that today and get this work finished and post some shows for the week. I'll be returning to the cabin hopefully tomorrow night. So maybe we'll do 1 or 2 from the cabin. We will probably do a call-in show, but we'll be doing the one at a time, or maybe we'll just go all in and do the panel show and hope for the best. And I'll make an announcement about that as soon as I know. The problem is I can't do those at 9 p.m. tomorrow. I can't do a show tomorrow night at 9 p.m. So if I do a show at all tomorrow, it'll be either early or late in order to get it in. I'd like to get a few more shows in for the week because we're a little light. And interestingly, but I was talking to another YouTuber who does live streams, and he told me, well, it's spring now, Steven, so everybody's numbers are going to go to shit for the next 3 or 4 months. People start watching more when it's really hot in the middle of summer, staying inside in the air conditioning. So maybe this is cyclical. I haven't looked at the numbers from last year, but that seems to make sense. So if we're a little light on the numbers, so be it. We continue to do the work that we do here. We want to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors for helping with the show. You Patreon supporters, you Twitch subscribers, you YouTube channel members, super chatters, super sticker purchasers, and of course, you super thanks people. You could hit that thanks button and throw a couple of bucks in our hat, even if you're watching a replay now, which is a great way to support the show. We want to thank Spooky for the excellent graphics. This thumbnail was one of my favorites that we've ever done. When I saw it today, it just made me smile, made me feel a little better. So thank you, Spooky. We want to thank Ian, Mr. Ian, the man with the golden voice, for being our announcer. And we want to thank all of you for joining us. And we want to thank Travis Taylor for being so incompetent or so deceptive that it gave us a great way to display that Skinwalker Ranch is really about the hunt for Skinwalker cash. George Knapp went around hunting for Skinwalker cash. Jeremy Corbell went around hunting for Skinwalker cash. Now Brandon Fugel hunted for Skinwalker cash. And let's not forget Bob Bigelow, the original hunter of Skinwalker cash. It's all a very convenient way for a lot of people to make millions and millions of dollars. I don't for 1 minute believe that any of these people that I have mentioned that are hunting for the Skinwalker cash are really here to find the truth of any strange phenomenon around that environment or location. I do not believe that any of them even care what's really going on at that ranch. To me, Skinwalker Ranch and the hunt for Skinwalker cash is just another grift. It's another grift, another scam to make millions of dollars out of paranormal activity that may or may not be present or active at that location. And that's where we're at, and that's where we find ourselves. So we're going to bounce on out of here. I'm not sure when we'll be back, but I'll be making an announcement on my Twitter. I would for sure like to get a few more shows in before we call it a week. But quite honestly, I'm struggling to do that, having just gotten over this dreaded COVID, or I don't think I'm over it yet. I'm still in the middle of it. I think that I'm over the hell part of it. But I'm sure any of you who have had it know what I mean. I just feel blah, right? I feel very blah, and I've got like a lot of fatigue and sinusy stuff going on. But, this too shall pass. We power through. I'm glad that I could spend some time with you all today. We'll be back sometime tomorrow. Please follow me on Twitter at Stephen Cambion. It's the best way to know about upcoming shows. Maybe if I experience the level of insomnia that I've been experiencing, I'll do a late show for you friends over at the pond later tonight, like 2 a.m. or so. But if I'm able to sleep, I'm going to bed. And we'll try this again tomorrow. So that's all I got for you, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you, especially you, Travis Taylor. I hope that you search your conscience and realize that lying to people for money is not a good karmic way to live. And especially you, Brandon Fugel, who call yourself a Christian, I hope that you examine your conscience and realize that paying people to lie to people so that you can, get on television is not a good karmic way to be. And I don't think any Christian would want to intentionally lie to people for money, but it appears to be that's what you're doing. I hope the two of you find a better way to make money than this garbage. That's all we got. Good night, and God bless all of you.